What's up, people? We are here with episode number 4 of the Create With Us podcast. We're taking marketing strategies, business growth strategies, and learning how you can apply them to your business. And also, a lot of our guests, like Rocky Lalvani, are entrepreneurs. So they take us behind the scenes on why they started their hustle and what they do. How's it going, Rocky?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me here today, Jeff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So Rocky and I met at a podcasting conference, and we're going to get more into what he does. But I've had the pleasure of going on his show and getting to know more about his services. But in a nutshell, I'm going to let Rocky explain more. But he helps small business owners maximize their business profit. A lot of times, a small business owner like myself will have a CPA, will have a lawyer, things like that, but really won't take a look at the profit. And we'll get into this, but there's this very well-known book called Profit First. Like, it goes through the hands of lots of small business owners, and Rocky's coaching methodology is based on this. So there it is, pretty sound principles. And who's the author on that?
Mike Michalowicz.
Mike Michalowicz. So that's Rocky's passion. He didn't start there. He started out doing corporate sales and other stuff, but he's got his hands in real estate now, podcasting, and of course, helping business owners make profit. Welcome to the show, Rocky.
Thanks again for having me, Jeff.
So, Profit Answer Man, a pretty unforgettable name. Tell us more about what that means and what you do.
So I was shocked to learn that most business owners don't understand the business of business. And they got into their business to do whatever it is that they loved. But one of the things they didn't love was the financials. And I thought about it. I'm like, why is that? And I realized they're not accountants, and they don't want to be. They want to go do the parts of the business that they particularly love. And that creates a problem, because if you're not looking at your financials, you're going to get yourself in trouble. I mean, you've heard what gets measured gets improved. And a big part of what I do is look at businesses, help them measure everything from the beginning of when a customer contact begins as a potential lead, all the way through to profits and cash flow in the bank. And then I help them have targets, and I keep them on track to those. So a lot of what I do is accountability. What makes me unique and different is that most bookkeepers are busy doing bookkeeping transactions, and most accountants are busy doing taxes, but nobody is focused on making sure that you are always profitable.
And that's so funny. When you think about it, it's an obvious thing, right? A business honestly exists to add value and to make profit, but it is not that obvious. How, out of curiosity, given your background, how did you end up getting into this profit first methodology and doing this as one of your primary things you do now for work?
So when I got out of college, I was always interested in money and investing and in that space. The problem was, when I looked at the space, most of the people who were there were selling products that didn't serve their customers. Rather, it was products that made them rich. And so I kind of shied away from it. And I was always reading, learning about investing and building wealth. And eventually I built my wealth. I'm like, what do I want to do next? How do I want to help? And I started going back to this money space. And I went down, I spent a week with Dave Ramsey, learned about his coaching programs and how to help the types of people he helps. And I quickly realized I didn't want to deal with broke people. Nothing wrong with them. It's just a very different mindset. And it wasn't something that was fun to me. And then I eventually kind of learned that the business owners were struggling. And then I learned about Profit First, and I read Mike's book, and I was like, this is perfect. This is kind of the way that I've run my financial life for years. This is what I kind of want to do. And a couple of years ago, I said, I'm done working for somebody else. I'm going to create my own business, and I'm going to partner with Mike, because it's a lot easier to partner with somebody than try and recreate the wheel.
That's very cool. And also for our listeners, that Profit First book is truly well known. So this isn't like it's honestly basic principles. So walk us through a vanilla example of how you help a small business owner, and you can even change a name or walk us through, like, it's a chiropractor, an agency owner. Like, how does it actually work? Because we're familiar with what it looks like to work with a CPA or perhaps get a lawyer to review contracts, but what does it look like working with you?
So basically, what I do is I go into your accounting software, whatever you're using, and I start pulling out reports. And then I start going through those reports and looking at the stories that they tell me. So when I look at a spreadsheet or a tax return or your accounting software, it's telling me your behaviors. And what I do over time is to figure out how you behave with money, figure out what you're doing within your business. And then what I try and do for my business owners is help them find the pools of profit. What I mean by that is most businesses have certain things that they do that generate the majority of the profit. So 20% of your business is probably providing 80% of the results. What I try and do is help the business owner figure out where that 20% is. And then what you can do is you can shift away from unprofitable work, which means you work less and you make more. And it's my job to figure out where those levers are. And then I will sit with my clients once or twice a month, and we'll measure where we're at. We'll come up with a game plan of what action needs to be taken. And especially in the beginning, a lot of what I do is uncovering what's going on. And a lot of times the business owner's got to go back and figure out why something happened. And then a big part of what we do is we really hold the line on spending. It's rare in business for you to hear people say, don't spend more money, cut your spending. It's not talked about for some reason.
Yeah. And what's funny is a lot of this is seemingly obvious stuff once you hear it, but a lot of business owners, it's not even in their mindset, say with the spending or going after the profit first or things like that, right?
Absolutely. And if you think about it, if you're a slightly larger business, let's say you have 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 employees, your employees have no incentive to cut costs. More than often, they just want to spend company money because it's not theirs. So they don't care. So they start coming to you and saying, I need this, I need this. And no one's actually sitting down and doing a return on investment to say, if we make these choices, if we spend this money, does it even benefit the business and how much? And then a lot of times what happens is over time, you stop using certain tools and then you forget about them, but you still keep paying the monthly software costs. And so a big part of what I do is are we using everything that we're paying for? And are we using it at the appropriate level? A lot of these softwares have multiple tiers. And so we'll look at cutting the tier level if you're not using the full services, and that can save you hundreds of dollars a month. We'll look at advertising spends. Are you getting a return on your advertising? How do we measure that? But is it true? And so a lot of it is just me thinking about your business from a financial standpoint, bringing you better questions and helping you make the shift.
For sure. How often, a lot of times payroll is a huge cost for a business. Do you find that business owners are a little misaligned there? Like they have people in the seats doing comfortable things, but maybe not, spending a lot of times on those products or services that aren't profitable, or what have you seen there?
And that's very true. A lot of it's hard for me to see remotely in the sense that I don't know what that worker is doing. But a big part of what we will do is we can look at your overall payroll and ask questions. Are you getting value out of this particular person? Invariably, everyone's got a bad hire. And the question is are you doing anything about it? Or are you continuing to pay people who don't really provide much value? One of the things I like to tell my owners is pay people more, but pay less of them. It takes away so much of the headache when you've got great people working for you. And we talk about hiring for culture and hiring for values more than hiring just for the talent alone, so that you've got the right people in the right seats that are helping you to thrive and grow your business.
Yeah, I feel like culture is so important, especially when you're a smaller team, right? Because everybody's going to carry a any size team, but your life can be a lot better if you have people that do the work well and there's a cultural fit.
it's 10x better. If you don't have good cultural fit, your bad cultural fit is affecting your bottom line massively. And someone's going to create the culture in your business. It should be you, the business owner, because if you're not, then someone else is doing it, and you may not like what they create.
For sure. Yeah. Because culture is going to be there by default, whether you have it like pinned on a board and they're intentionally creating it or it's just happening. So, how does your service look if a business owner is to engage you? Is it like what kind of setup is it?
Usually what will happen is I will have a discovery call with the business owner, and we will chat about their business, and we'll chat about what it is that they're looking to accomplish and what they're hoping to do. Then what I do is I offer them a free assessment. So what I do is I go into their accounting software, I pull a whole bunch of numbers, and I come back to them and I show them where they've been over the last couple of years, how they're doing. Usually at that point, I'll have a couple of questions about how they're spending and some of the different things they're doing. And usually I can at least offer a few suggestions of what they should think about or look at. And then from there, if they want me to, then I will partner with them and we will set targets for where I think they can get their business to. Now, this is not an overnight success story. I usually tell most business owners, depending on the size of your business, it's going to take 1 to 2 years to get from where you are today to where you'd like to be. You've got to make changes to processes, changes in the way you do things. All of that can't happen overnight. So it is a journey. And of course, things always change as you go forward. So it's being able to constantly course correct over time.
That's super cool. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We talked a little bit about how you had a passion for money. You did it for yourself, but this wasn't like your first career. Forever and a day, you were in like you were selling what? Tell us about that, your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So, you know what they say, the enemy of great is good. I got out of college. This was a long time ago. There was no internet. I had ideas of using spreadsheets in business, but I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't know how to connect with the people that I needed to offer my services to. And I got into a sales career and I started doing well. And because I was doing well, I just kind of let that go. Unfortunately, had I stayed with it, it would have been a lot more fun, I think. But I had a great job. They paid me well, and I had a lot of freedom. And so life was good for most of those years. And eventually it was like, well, what do I really want to do? And I took probably 5 to 7 years of thinking, trying, and playing around before I finally made the jump and said, this is it, this is perfect, and this is how I want to build my business.
Awesome. And along the way, you've done some real estate investing as well?
Yeah, I've been doing that on the side. So I started off with rentals, and then in the crash after 2008, we started buying properties and flipping them. So that was going really well. It has tremendously slowed down for me now simply because the deals are much harder to find, and I just don't have the time to focus on it. But if opportunities present themselves, I will do that. And I still have my rentals, and I'll continue to do that as well. So it's a great way to build wealth. And what I tell my business owners is you should remove money from your business, which is what the profit is. Use that money to invest in other streams of income. And one of those streams is rental income. So some of my business owners might actually buy the building that their business is in. So it creates that second stream of income of instead of paying somebody else, they're paying themselves, or they might buy real estate somewhere else because it's a great way to protect your assets and to protect yourself should something happen in your business.
That's very cool. And so you've branched out into a couple of things too online with your podcast. So you have two, don't you? Tell us about your podcast. And we're doing one here, and it's been a fabulous journey. So what's your podcast journey been?
So I have two podcasts. The one podcast is called Profit Answer Man. And on that podcast, we literally talk about profit first. I have people on who've used profit first. I have other people who do what I do come on. And we just share tips of how to make your business more valuable and more profitable. And then my second podcast is called Richer Soul. So once you kind of figure out the money, whether or not you're a business owner or not, doesn't really matter. How do you figure out your life? How do you create harmony? So at the beginning is, what's your purpose? What do you actually want out of life? And do you have a plan for your life? How do we get the right mindsets? And then we talk about harmony with health, wealth, time, relationships, and spirituality. How do you get all those different components of your life to work for you in the way that you have intentionally picked for it to work for you? Too many people are trying to chase somebody else's lifestyle instead of deciding what they truly want and building that life for themselves. And that's what we talk about on that podcast.
For sure. Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's almost like too with business, we're so programmed to always have growth. And I was at an amazing business coaching the year before last, and the Shrink for Entrepreneurs, commitaction.com, Peter Schallert. So Peter said, all you guys are going to sit down and set your goal for next year to double your business. And he was like, could you imagine if within a year, what would happen if you doubled your business? Like how your time would look as the business owner, the kind of staffing changes you need to make your overall stress level. And if you really looked at it, unless you're prepared for it, and there's a point, like doubling a business would like crush most people if they do it in a year. So Rocky, I like what you said about, not just getting on the bandwagon, but really thinking through what you want and what ladder you're trying to climb, right?
Well, so think about it. I can give you a point here. Let's say that you've got a business and you've got a 10% profit margin, right? You could go out and double your business, but that's twice as much work. It's a whole bunch of more people and a whole lot of sales. What if instead of doing that, you somehow got your profit margin from 10% to 20%? You just double the amount of money you had without working any harder. I'm much more focused on that. I think it would be much better to improve your bottom line, which doubles the amount of money you have without working any harder, because nobody wants to work harder. I don't want to work harder. My business is actually built to be small. I don't want it to grow big. I want to have time freedom. And so that's a big value to me. And the way I do that is restricting the number of clients. And so it's a lot more fun that way. But yeah, I hate this grow. I prefer instead be more profitable.
That's funny. And, I like to talk about the wheel of life a lot too, like spirituality, relationships, physical activity and stuff. And, a lot of times, because as I've gotten older and got more of the things I've gone after, things don't mean as much. Like a fancy car when you're younger, or getting a nice car is really cool. But as you get like different cars, like it's a car's there to drive. And granted, perhaps you don't want to beat her, but like having the nicest, most shiniest thing. But I feel like we're so wired, right, to get more, do more, and everything like that. It's almost like you have to pause and think to like back away from that mindset in business and in life. What's your take?
Absolutely. I'm big into saying you don't need more. And I think that's a problem. We are the most sold to country in the world. Everything is buy. This will solve your problems. You don't need anything really to solve your problems. You need to sit back and be grateful for what you already have and enjoy life. And as you said, more is not the answer. As for me, I want less. I want a decluttered life with more time freedom. That's what's most important to me, so that I can hang out with friends and learn and do the things that I love to do. Another shiny car is not going to change the needle for me one bit.
For sure. And we also know what the research says, that Finding Flow book by Csikszentmihalyi Csikszentmihalyi, it's a famous one, or there was a study that's pretty famous, that once we have like a roof over our heads and, meal, that there's so much stability in having a roof over our heads and being able to put meals on the table. Like this research showed that billionaires, for example, were only a few marginal percentage points happier on average than the person who could afford dinner, afford a house, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, that was pretty telling on that money trap.
It's true. Once you have a certain level, it no longer matters. I think for most people, they're stuck on the hamster wheel and they're grinding, grinding, grinding. And there's no reason to. You can have more by having less. And that's the key to this all. And that's what the principles are.
For sure. Yep. And in COVID times with some businesses booming and others not, it's never been more important to like look at what we really need and what's essential and not. And frankly, I don't know what lessons you learned in COVID, but for me, it was wild when life went on hold. Remember when we couldn't go to restaurants, we couldn't get out. So all these things we normally did came to a pause. It put, I guess, margin in there, a time margin. And it gave me a chance to really like reflect on what I needed and not. And I it turns out a lot of stuff I was doing, I didn't pick up and do again. The gym I was going to, I figured out how to work out in nature and go outdoors. Like so many things happened. And I realized I needed less. So I don't know. Do you think the pandemic's teaching people anything?
For me, I was shocked at how quickly everything changed. So like literally overnight, as you said, everything closed. You couldn't go anywhere. But in the online world, everything opened up literally overnight. So many opportunities presented themselves that I started networking across the entire country and the world, essentially. I got to meet more people. And for whatever reason, in the world of Zoom, people are timely. At least the people I deal with, they all show up when they're supposed to. There's no drive time. I was able to so dramatically improve my productivity by giving up on all the drive time and all the places that you'd have to go. And it's been cool and it's been fun. And like you said, there's a lot of stuff that we really don't need. And learning to turn that off and say no.
Yeah, it's been a blast. You and I met at a conference for podcasting, and I'd never been to a virtual conference. There's 40 or 50 people in this Zoom room, but it actually was really fun. And out of that, we've gotten to know each other and are working together business to business. And, I would have never gotten on this path if it wasn't for the pandemic. And I think too, online, you can find your tribe a little quicker, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine trying to find your tribe in your own city versus, all across the nation, or perhaps for some, their services and products are worldwide.
And that's so true. And that's literally what happened. My ability to find my tribe was multiplied in the online world compared to being in the real world, because it's just a timing thing. And plus you could jump from place to place quickly. Whereas in the real world, you don't have that flexibility of hopping in and out. And it's just different, but it's been a lot of fun. And if you think about it, the event that we met was an in-person event at one point. And you would have had to drive all the way to, or fly to New Jersey to go to that event. Well, I probably wouldn't have done it.
I wouldn't have gone. No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went because I was starting to get on podcasts and get my message out there and share on that front. And then I fell in love with the community, and here we are going back to event number 4 this Friday.
That we are excited to be there.
So we've talked about profit first and your strategies there. We've talked about your entrepreneurial journey. Before we wrap up and we give people a way to get in touch with you, we're going to do a few rapid fire questions. So Rocky, you ready for the rapid fire round?
Sure.
All right, here we go. So what's a hobby of yours outside of work that you do to sharpen the saw?
I don't know that it's kind of a hobby, but I like to lift weights and I like to lift heavy weights. So that for me is kind of a hobby, is physical working out so that I can build strength. I know I'm getting older and I don't want to get weaker.
Good. Keep that body moving. What is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Ooh, you know what? For me, I think I struggled with relationships and keeping track of people and building those databases. So I think being much more intentional in networking and building the relationships up would probably be a big thing. And then creating a system to keep track of it all so that you're able to follow up with people in a timely manner.
For sure. Okay, what is a book that you highly recommend our audience sink into?
So the book that I recommend the most is Living Forward by Michael Hyatt. It's a proven plan to get out of the drift and create the life of your dreams. I find most people don't have a plan for their life. They're in the drift. And when you get very intentional about what you want out of life, it becomes very easy to achieve it.
That's awesome. Okay, and last question, what is one thing that you're deeply grateful for right now?
I am grateful for simple things. Like right now, I've got heat and electricity and Zoom. And, I think last week with all the storms coming through, we took for granted that whole thing, right? People had to deal with no heat, no water, no electric. And I think we forget just how lucky we are to have those simple things that we take for granted every day.
For sure. Sometimes when I'm too big picture or stressed out, I will go for the gratitudes that are intraday. For example,
Mhm.
this evening I'm getting to hang out with my youngest daughter. We're going to have fun, go on a daddy-daughter date. But, such a simple thing happens all the time, but it's actually something to really be grateful for and put a little attention on and anticipate. So I like how, you took it back to the day to be grateful. All right. So people, if they want to connect with you, you got your podcast, your websites, where should they go?
So if you come to the website, it's profitcomesfirst.com. And from the website, you can find my podcasts, Profit Answer Man and Richer Soul. If you want to check out Mike's book, there's a link there. You can get 2 free chapters of the book. And I also put a bunch of extra Profit First tools with that as well. So you can pick up all of that for free there. And if you want to chat with me and get on my calendar, there's a link to do that there as well.
Yeah, and a beautiful thing you said, the first consultation and analysis it's no obligation, right?
Yeah, no, it's no obligation. I don't believe in hard pitch sales. I have when I talk to people, I'm like, you're able to cancel at any time. Like if you don't want to work with me, don't. That's fine. I'm not going to hold you to any contracts or anything. That's absurd.
For sure. Well, I've really enjoyed the time I've spent with you. Your energy's great. You have a something that's uniquely needed, right? That the CPA is not giving a business owner, the lawyer's not. And beyond that, you're not just thinking about being intentional with the business and profit, but you have that whole wheel of life thing going too. So that's awesome. Well, Rocky, episode 4 is a wrap. Thank you so much for being our guest. Check out all this stuff in the show notes. And until next time, I'm Jeff with the Create With Us podcast.